Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Terrell, president of the MOU. As many of you are aware, the MOU lost a significant member with the passing of Bob Jansen recently on October 29th. Bob was inextricably linked with the MOU. For nearly 4 decades, he served as the editor of the MOU's journal from 1959 to 1996, and he served as our president from 1996 to 1997. And he continued to serve on the board in the role of chair of the Avian Information Committee until his death. We have asked Bob's friend, Jim Williams, to share some words with us today in remembrance of Bob Jansen.
Well, I want to talk about our friend, your friend. I'm sorry. I have a hard time talking about Bob's passing. I say your friend because if you liked birds, Bob was your friend. He did die, as Michelle mentioned, the 29th. He was 91 years old. He was preceded in death by his wife, Suzanne, who died in January. She was 90. They had been married for 69 years. Soon after her death, he was put in hospice care in Minnesota, which is where he died. He was an extraordinary birder and an extraordinary conservationist. And I think everything he did, the programs, the volunteer work, guiding bird walks, the books, was all meant to help us become better acquainted and hopefully better inclined toward bird conservation. He wanted us to save birds on the land because of us, not in spite of us. And as Michelle mentioned, he was an important voice for the MOU. And talk about voice, I'm sure some of you in this room remember the hotline. That preceded eBird and Facebook and anything that came over a computer that kept you up to date on birds. If you saw a good bird, if I might explain for those of you, few perhaps, who don't know, you saw a bird, you called Bob's answering machine, telephone in his kitchen, and you recorded what you saw. And on Thursday, when he came home from work, he summarized all of that into a longer piece that he recorded so you could call and find out what you were going to do that weekend. And I made hundreds of phone calls to that line. You'd call in the middle of the week just in case something extraordinary happened, and he put out an extra edition. I talked to his kids, Carolyn and Mike, at his memorial service last month, and what it was like to have Bob Jansen as a father. Was he ever home? Well, yes, he was, answering the phone. Thursday nights were busy at that house because of the telephone work. I said, did you ever go with your father on any of these trips? We know that he traveled extensively with Ray Glassell. I don't know how many miles they put on the car together. In one of the introductions to his 2019 edition, the update of Birds in Minnesota, Carol Henderson says that Bob drove the equivalent of 6 round trips to the moon. That comes out to be about 2,700,000 miles. So did the kids ever go? Yes, Mike went. He said, oh yeah, I'd go when I was younger. He said, I look forward to the stops at the convenience stores and the gas stations for soda and ice cream and candy. Carolyn, did you ever go? Oh yes, but only when he let me drive. Suzanne went with him as well on occasion. She was in needlework, knitting, needlepoint, crocheting, whichever. She'd do it in the passenger seat. And at the end of the day, he always promised to take her to dinner, which was a little shove toward come along. I just have stories. I go to a meeting called the West Suburban Birds and Beer Group out in Loretto on Thursday nights, last Thursday of the month. And 3 days ago, we had that meeting, and I gave a little presentation like this. And somebody raised their hand and said, "Could I speak?" Sure. He said, "I had a tufted titmouse at my feeder in Carver County, and Bob called, could he come and see it?" Certainly. So Bob arrived. The bird had left the feeder 5 minutes before Bob arrived, of course, but Bob spent 2.5 hours there waiting. And I'm not sure how Bob felt about the waiting period, but it was very evident from this man's conversation with us that he was thrilled to have Bob Jansen in his house talking about birds, something he never expected. 4 other people stood up with the same kind. I'm going to fall off. Sorry. The same kind of story. They had met him in a path in a park somewhere, and he stopped, introduced himself, met them, spoke with them, visited, gave them his time and his information, and it was really a big deal for them to have that happen. The other interesting thing is that Bob never birded outside the state of Minnesota. He wrote a book co-authored with Darrell Tesson in Wisconsin. Darrell is the Wisconsin version of Bob Jansen. Mike Mulligan, a friend of mine and a birder who moved to Calgary some years ago and died recently, he and I birded Alaska often, and we learned of a trip to Attu. If you know what Attu is, the island at the end of the Aleutians. If you're collecting North American birds, it's a good place to go because they'll be blowing out of Russia and Japan, and you won't see them anywhere else. Attu's a miserable place to be, and the accommodations were equally miserable, but you went anyway. So there was a 2-week, it was a standard trip. A 1-week trip was offered if we volunteered to help clean up the accommodation, which was an old concrete building the Coast Guard had used, and it was a mess. So Mike and I decided for $2,000 or 1 week in Attu, why not? We'll never get there otherwise. And we must have mentioned this to Bob, and for some strange reason, Bob agreed to go with us, which was a big surprise then, still a surprise now. So we flew to Anchorage, and the first morning there was a meeting, and the man said, "Sorry, the plane is broken, we can't leave." So we birded Anchorage. And the second morning, the weather was bad, and we couldn't fly, so we birded Anchorage. And the third morning, the weather was the same, and we birded Anchorage. The fourth morning, the plane was broken, and we birded Anchorage. A lot of people go to Alaska for birds. Nobody goes to bird Anchorage. So at that meeting, Larry Balch, the organizer, said, "I'll give you, if you want to drop out now, go home. I'll give you $1,000, half your money back." Well, Bob took the money, got on the plane and went home. And I learned from one of his friends at the memorial service, Bob was a man of faith, and he had long harbored the idea of going to seminary. So he invested his $1,000, found money, in a year of seminary classes, seminary in St. Paul. Probably the only man in history who traded a trip to Attu for a year at the seminary. But I think that speaks to the kind of fellow he was. He knew what was important, and rare birds out of Asia didn't make the list. He was really a nice man. He was a good friend. He was good company, whether you came to his house, or he went to your house to look at a bird, or you met him in the woods, or you talked to him after a meeting like this. He was just a nice, nice person. And I think driving over here. I thought it would, maybe I'm the last one with this idea and it's been presented before. There should be an award in Bob's name. Some kind of award to recognize all that he did for the MOU and all that he did for birds and birding and birders like you and me. He was important. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for those words about Bob. I want to share just a little anecdote, my own Bob Jansen anecdote relevant to today's meeting. At one of the last meetings of the MOU board that Bob was able to attend, he and Carol Henderson brought to us the proposal to partner with Pheasants Forever on that purchase of land that Sabin Evans shared with us earlier, the Rush Lake WMA in Monoman County. And when that passed the board and we made that donation, he was so thrilled. He was like a little kid, and he couldn't wait to actually get off the call. He actually left the meeting to call Carol, who was about to make an international flight, and he wanted to make sure that he caught Carol at the airport before he got on his flight, and to share with him that exciting news. Conservation and preservation of habitat was very important to Bob, and he was really thrilled that day, and that's a memory that I'll share and treasure from him. He will be dearly missed, and the board is considering ways to recognize Bob in the coming year, and I'm sure we'll have lots of opportunity to remember him. Right now, what I'd like to do is share with you, first of all, the agenda of our business meeting. And I'm going to start by sharing with you some highlights of the MOU's year, this past year, and then we will have the Treasury report, the membership report, election of officers, and the awards. The MOU has 14 standing committees, the chairs of which, together with the 5 elected officers, the journal and newsletter editor, and past president, make up the board. This year, 3 new chairs joined the board: Liz Harper, Awards and Recognition; Trey Weaver, Field Trips; and Christina Dexter-Nienhaus, Savaloya Grants. Stepping off the board at the end of this year are past president Dick King, recording secretary Catherine Baumtrog, conservation committee chair Carol Henderson, and social media chair Pete Nichols. I know that Pete and Kat couldn't be here with us today, but Dick and Carol, if you could please stand. And if the rest of you could please join me in thanking these members for their service to the board. I very much enjoyed getting to know and work with both of them, and they're both going to be dearly missed on our board. In the MOU calendar, one of the first actions of the year is the solicitation of proposals for Savaloya grants. Each year, the MOU seeks grant applications from individuals or organizations undertaking projects in Minnesota that increase our understanding of birds, promote preservation of birds in their natural habitats, or increase public interest in birds, including among groups currently underrepresented in Minnesota's birding community. In 2003, 6 projects were awarded Savaloya funds. 2 of these projects were awarded grants thanks to special donations from MOU members, one in memory of Bob Russell, and another specifically in support of a BIPOC project. Just under $13,000 in grants were awarded. Please note, if you have a project in mind, that applications for the next round of grants are due on January 20th, 2024. In late March, the Education Committee organizes the Spring Birding Primer, co-sponsored by Carpenter Nature Center. Power and internet outages caused by an overnight storm gave the organizers much early morning anxiety, but all was restored in time to host an online event during which 105 birders watched an excellent lineup of speakers from the comfort of home. If you missed the primer or want to rewatch any of the presentations, past Spring Primer and Paper Session presentations are available on the MOU's YouTube channel. And again, today we are recording the speakers, so if there's a speaker that you want to share with somebody after the meeting, or you want to rewatch a speaker, they will be shared later. One of the spring primer presentations by Ben Douglas on the subject of shorebirds was so popular that a follow-up, longer, in-depth version of this talk was held on the evening of April 18th via Zoom. Nearly 200 people registered for this session, which was attended by birders from as far away as Virginia Beach, Virginia. This presentation, too, is available on the MOU's YouTube channel. Again this year, the MOU partnered with the Carpenter Nature Center in the Hastings Area Earth Day Birding Festival, which was held on April 22nd, and which includes an annual youth birding competition. A total of 15 teams with participants ranging in age from 3 to 15 registered for the youth birding competition. Jen Vies shared that this competition connects families to nature in profound ways. After participating, families have become dedicated bird watchers and conservationists, and many children have expressed that they want to work in the field of environmental science when they grow up. Pictured is Everett of Team American Goldfinch, who was thrilled to receive and hang up his very own bird feeder. The MOU recognized the achievement of these young birders by providing free memberships to teams in each age category. April was a busy month with the Salt Lake Birding Weekend the weekend following the Hastings Birding Celebration. After a 3-year hiatus, the MOU and MIRVAC partnered to revive Minnesota's oldest birding festival for its 45th year. The event was attended approximately by 85 participants who logged 139 species during the weekend. About half of the participants were attending the count or exploring the Lac Qui Parle area for the first time. Many thanks are owed to Jason Frank of Ortonville, who stepped up to be into the role of local organizer. From early spring through late fall, the MOU also hosted 30 field trips. New MOU field trip committee chair Trey Weaver organized and personally led many of these trips, but also had assistance from volunteer field trip leaders. Looking ahead to 2024, Trey is seeking additional volunteers to lead. And if you have a favorite birding destination where you would be willing to lead a walk, or if you have an idea for a field trip, please reach out to Trey, and he is sitting right there. From May through October, the MOU also partners with the Bell Museum to hold monthly bird walks led by MOU volunteers. These walks, which take place on campus, are free and open to the public. The arrival of fall, for all of us, of course, means the state fair and the staffing of our educational booth for the full 12 days of the fair. Our cadre of 75 volunteers were kept busy handing out MOU bookmarks, checklists, brochures, and fielding a wide variety of bird-related questions under our Ask Us About Birds banner. This year, we had many new young volunteers step up to share their love of birds, and our youngest MOU committee member, Isabel Martinez, created some bird coloring sheets for younger state fair visitors to enjoy. This year, September 24th, marked the 7th annual Fall Hawk Count, co-hosted by the MOU and Carpenter Nature Center. The count documents the migration through the St. Croix Mississippi River's confluence area. This year, 73 species were observed, including a royal tern, and more than 70 visitors attended the gathering. This was a obviously quick and brief overview of the activities of the MOU. Details on our activities and our partner organizations, field trips, and upcoming events can be found in the bi-monthly newsletter, Minnesota Birding. During the year, they are also shared on MOU's social media accounts. Over the past year, the MOU continued to broaden its social media audience, averaging a 15% increase across both platforms. And as we conclude this year and look ahead to 2024, I of course have to put in my annual plug for the MOU Daily Birding Planner. What better way to keep track of your birding adventures and sightings than with a planner that includes a wealth of birding information, including migration dates, checklists, and maps, and other useful information on Minnesota birds, and new this year, birding bingo. The 2024 planner is available on lulu.com, and you will find a sample and more information in the book room. The planner and all the work of the MOU would not be possible without the contributions of volunteers. I would like to thank everyone who volunteered their time to the MOU during 2023 as committee members, birdwalk leaders, speakers, state fair booth staffers, writers of articles, donors, and in a multitude of other capacities, big and small. The MOU truly runs on the commitment of volunteers to Minnesota birds, and for that, I thank you, and we thank you. Next up on our business meeting is the Treasurer's Report from Ann Kesson.
Michelle thanked all the people who, former officers, committee chairs who have stepped down this year. She couldn't very well thank herself, but I think it's appropriate for us to thank Michelle, who is leaving her position as president today. She has done just a stellar job. And now the fun begins. I'm going to give you a summary of our annual treasurer's report. Our fiscal year runs from November 1st to October 31st. So this is the treasurer's report for November 1st, 2022 to October 31st, 2023. During this period, let's start with what we took in. We had an income of approximately $36,000. By far, the primary source of our income is membership dues. Expenditures included about $32,000 for program. That's 86% of all our expenditures were spent on program. That would include our publications, this event, the spring primer, all the things that Michelle just talked about that we do. We also spent about $5,000 on administrative costs, PayPal fees, insurance, postage, that kind of stuff. So the total expenditures for the year were about $37,000. Now, if you are paying keen attention, and I know you are, you will have noticed that our expenditures exceeded our income by about $1,000. And we're talking here, we're not talking about the Savaloya Fund, which is an entirely different pot of money. We're talking about our operating budget. We were about $1,000 in the red. Now, the MOU is in excellent financial condition. We have a healthy cushion. However, ending the year in the red is not a sustainable financial strategy going forward. So, why did this occur? Well, it occurred, and this will probably not be surprising, because our expenses have increased. Cost of paper, the cost of postage, the cost of this event, all these things have gone up. And so the board on Thursday night was discussing, how to deal with the situation. And one of the things we will be considering going forward is a possible increase in membership dues. Now, I know you don't want to hear this. Nobody does. But to put it in perspective, the last time we had an increase in dues was 2001. Now, there may be some among you who feel that an increase every 23 years is excessive. Maybe so. As I say, nothing has been decided yet, but I wanted to give you a heads up that this may be occurring in the coming year. If you have any questions about this summary report I've just given you, or if you would like me to send you a copy of the complete year-end treasurer's report, or if you would like to tell me your opinion of a possible dues increase, please connect with me later today or email me. You can reach me at treasurer@moumn.org. Thanks.
Thank you, Ann. Our membership secretary, Cindy Thury-Smith, could not be with us today, and so I'm going to give a little overview of our membership numbers in her stead. As you can see, our numbers have declined a little bit this year over 2022. Our total mailing is 1,023. Our total paid memberships, 960. Life members, 163. Annual members paying dues, or members paying annual dues, 797, just down a little bit from 2022. And we've gained 83 new members since January 1st. Up next on our business meeting agenda is the annual election of officers. On the slide is the slate of officers put forth by the nomination committee. And as I call the nominees' names, if they could please stand. For president, Justin Watts. Justin has served as vice president of the MOU the past 2 years. For president, vice president, Rob Daves. Many of you may know Rob as the current president of the Minnesota River Valley Audubon Chapter, MRVAC. For recording secretary, Darcy Panatti. Darcy currently serves on the board of Wild River Audubon Society. Our current treasurer, Ann Kesson, who you just heard from, and current membership secretary, Cindy Thury-Smith, have both agreed to serve another term in 2024. This is the slate of officers put forth. Are there any nominations from the floor for any of these positions? Hearing none, the slate of officers as nominated is put forth, and we will vote on the slate of officers as a whole. All in favor of electing this slate of officers, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The slate of officers approved. Thank you. Justin would like to...
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I just wanted to say a few words today to kind of cap off the business meeting here before we wrap up with the awards. First, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. This is such a fun event. I absolutely love this event so much, and it's probably because this is a really easy group of people to get along with. Maybe as we could take inspiration from Bob Jansen and learning from. If you haven't made a new friend today, I've got the simple recipe on how you can do it. Turn to your neighbor, turn to someone who you haven't met, you don't know yet, and tell them, I like birds, do you like birds? I think we're already friends. It's a simple recipe in this room, folks, so that's why this event is really so fun and is something to really look forward to every year. The other thing I really want to highlight is the legacy that MOU as an organization has within the state. It is so deep and so broad in its impact. And to highlight that, I want to ask if everybody who's a member of the MOU today, can you raise your hand? Members of the MOU. Now, keep your hand up if you have been a member for at least 5 years. Keep your hand up if you have been a member for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Ooh, 25 years, 30 years. Do we have some record holders? 35 years. Anybody's up? Oh, yeah, we've got Kim over here. Yeah. Who's the record holder here? Kim, how much have you got? At least 50. And back here? Let's give a round of applause. Folks, this is fantastic. So really, this illustrates the MOU's legacy of conservation, our study, education, and our collective expertise. And it is so important because as a group, we bring so much excitement to the field and study of birding within the state. And keeping it within that local premise makes our voices so much stronger. So this is a very important group to be a part of. Moving forward, I want to make sure that we can keep and harness that excitement to stay vigorous in our mission statement and our execution and optimization of how we perform that mission. And so with that, I want to just tell you that I'm so very excited to expand on this existing mission by collectively tackling barriers and equity and inclusion in our hobby, our organization, and our broader communities, by supporting really great community events and big sits and other large birding events throughout the state during the year, by reaffirming our commitment to conservation through survey, restoration, and research. These are three really big pillars of conservation. And by growing our affiliate partnerships to make sure that our collective voices are connecting with organizations throughout the state and the nation as a whole. So this is what the MOU can do when we come together in this way to support birds, to expand education, to understand what we know and what we don't know, and to ask each other what we have learned in the past and how we can use that going forward. So thank you all. Please join me in supporting the MOU as an organization and seeing what we can do next. Thanks.